Hello there, guys. I do believe that this is the first time that I have come over live on Forced Adoption Exposed for a very long time. So, welcome to the community. Welcome to the Facebook. Sorry, I'm just a little bit rattled by the police outside my front window right now. So, welcome to Forced Adoption Exposed. My name is Kelly Cotton, and I am the creator and founder of Forced Adoption Exposed. It was actually created with me and two other mothers back in October 2013 when we stormed a adoption conference. Well, actually, this was a adoption seminar and conference in Manchester, and three parents who had had our children taken for forced adoption attended a adoption conference as potential adopters. We scoured the pictures of all of the children. We went through all of the process. We even gave our story for children being taken, but we didn't say that children had been taken, but we used all of the story that was used, and all three of us were told the same thing. That would make us amazing adopters because it would mean that we could relate to the children that we were adopting. Okay? I basically went in and said that I am a mother who has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I don't know whether or not I want to have a biological child or to adopt a child because it has a 50-50 chance of carrying my condition. That was my story. On that day, we then gave them 2 minutes notice to take down all of the children's photographs that were up for adoption and close down their adoption party, and we announced in the room that we were parents from Forced Adoption Exposed. The conference was closed down, and that was the day that we decided to call ourselves an exposure group, and literally we went around adoptions, but it fell away. The other two parents fell away, and I've continued to keep Forced Adoption Exposed going. As people know, on the 13th of December 2012, two police officers and two social workers walked into my home and asked me to attend the hospital in Wrexham with Aaron and Faith, two of my children. We have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I was currently at Save the Family at the time. As people know, in 2010, I was in the media challenging people from negative ways of thinking to positive ways of thinking, and I was asking myself what was the biggest problem in the UK, and what route did we need to rip out to put the great back in Britain? That's what I was doing. So from 2010, I was literally going to the people at the top. So I was meeting with my local MP. I was meeting with the processes through. I'll just show you what's rattling me. This is rattling me, seriously. Yeah, they do it to me all the time. I'm not saying it's personal. I'm just saying there's no reason for that car to be parked there, being that the police are over at 2 blocks down the road there, and they have literally just sat their police car in front of the window. As people may know, that this week alone, I've had the last week, I've had the police here 3 times, and I've been put back on a Section 17 because of my intentions at the event here in Portsmouth for D-Day, when we had the Queen, 18 members of state, and Donald Trump here, and my 3-minute pitch to Donald Trump. So I have been threatened, intimidated and bullied by the police and trolled continuously over the last 3 weeks. So basically, my own 2 children were taken for forced adoption, and literally it was a 26-week process, and I was on a hiding to nowhere. Because of the previous media on me, as soon as I told the courts inside the room that I had every intentions of exposing them for kidnapping my children for forced adoption, and exposing Save the Family for being part of actually trafficking many children for forced adoption, I never realised the severity of what was going on. In fact, before Aaron and Faith were taken, I had just been down south to visit an old friend who I'd known in my previous life, raising my 2 older boys, and her daughter had just had her child taken by social care and was being placed for forced adoption, and I couldn't understand why. It was being classed that she was in a domestic violence relationship. I've got my skates on, so I'm actually moving around, so I just nearly fell over. I couldn't understand the situation. I was actually at the police station at the time with the mum trying to suss out what was going on. When I then got a phone call from social services to say that I was currently homeless and living in a car with my children. And I was starting to get the social chasing me. And I was trying to explain the circumstances, that we were in the middle of a transition. We were currently staying in a penthouse hotel, and I was literally just travelling down to London because I was at the National Achievers Congress with Richard. That was in 2011. So in 2012, it was Donald Trump, Sir Sebastian Cole, Lord Sir Cole, and Tony Robbins, and about 15, 16 other entrepreneurs who basically, as a crew member, I looked after, and also as a person who was coming out of the benefit system herself, launching Challenge Britain, which then becomes Step Up Britain. I was being supported, mentored and guided by our world's greatest entrepreneurs. Do you know what I mean? It was already in the papers that James Greenwell was mentoring me. It was already in the papers that I was with Leyland Business Venture. It was already in the papers that Success Resources and all of those people were sponsoring me. So my situation is slightly different, but the process that they used to take my children was very much the same. December 2012, my children were taken. June 2012, the judge ordered care and placement orders on my children. Then I was gagged. So basically, I was issued with draconian gagging orders to say that I can't talk about Aaron and Faith being taken. I can't mention that District Judge Andrew Shaw, the judge who ordered for my children to be taken, and I cannot say that PC Stephen Lawrence and social worker Cheryl Osberlin colluded and committed perjury in order to take two of my children. I'll give you the first sentence that was given on the paperwork. Kelly was sectioned under the Mental Health Act when Aaron was 7 months old and both the children went to live with their paternal grandparents. So the social worker had implied to the police officer that I had such severe mental health that I was actually only sectioned a matter of Aaron would have been 3 at the time. So 2 years previously. So that's what they were implying to the courts. Let me tell you this. There is a year and 1 month in between Aaron and Faith. If Aaron, the older child, was 7 months old, and they are claiming that both of those children then went to their paternal grandparents, there is a year and 1 month in between my children. So work out the maths. Aaron is 7 months old. So Faith is where? Faith's in my tummy. In fact, Faith's only 2 months old on conception. So straight away that statement is flawed. Now also, I was breastfeeding Elijah. So if Elijah was being breastfed, and if Shiloh was, I'm talking about my 2 children now. If Aaron was being breastfed, and if Faith was currently in my tummy, how is that statement true from the moment go? And prior to it actually happening to me here last year, I have never actually been sectioned in my life. So straight away that sentence is flawed. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is the easiest condition to claim to have. Also was used because obviously my children have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and they don't want to adopt children out with a genetic condition. So they've claimed that my children don't have this condition. However, the doctors have actually had the children checked and they do have EDS, as we already know. Obviously, I have been classed as having borderline personality, comorbid with narcissistic traits, with being Asperger's. These labels have been used to obviously keep my children for forced adoption. Now, after my children were taken and after that order was granted, I didn't know what to do. I was already using social media. I was already on social media and I just posted, "They've got my kids, social services have got my kids, what do I do?" In fact, I created a Facebook page called "They've got my kids." They've got my kids, social services have got my kids, what do I do? And I created that page. I never expected within 8 hours to have nearly 500 people on that page. I spoke out to get help. And what I found was the courts is so locked down that you can't even actually get legal advice from anybody because they have to have your legal aid certificate. No solicitor or no barrister, well, you don't get to see the barristers anyway, but no, I just need to plug in to make sure I don't run out of battery. If I do run out of battery, I do apologise. No person is allowed to see any person's paperwork. Now, on a positive note, if you are facing some form of personal circumstances, it shouldn't be discussed in a public domain. If a child has been inflicted to child abuse, that child has a right to be protected and not have that information shared into the private public channel. Hence why within the court remit and also within child protection meetings, they very, very much clarify that any of the information in that room is confidential. That is the whole point of it. It's meant to be confidential. So if a child has been found by the police with a spoon in his rectum and being abused by the mother and father, then that Bailey report should not be in the public domain, because that child, and I'm sorry to be blunt about this, but this is the world that we're currently in, that child has a right to a private life. That child has a right to be removed from their parents and placed in a safe environment. But what should be happening is those parents that have subjected that child to that incident should be arrested and taken to the criminal courts and prosecuted. The child then has every right to help, to be in a loving, supportive place, be it in foster care, or be it on special guardian, whatever labels they want to give these things, to somebody within the community who's going to look after them, nurture them, and help them understand what they've gone through. What is happening is children are being arrested. So if you watch the program Exposure, Don't Take My Child, it will show you very, very, very clear the steps and stages. The first thing that you will hear is Paul's wife crying. Now, the full video is on my YouTube for the full incident of the baby being removed. Paul filmed the whole thing. From the police officer stood at the door going, "Sorry, mate, I've only just come on. I don't even know what's going on. It's these guys out there that know what's going on." He's not saying this, but, I'm only coming in to completely destroy your life, take your 6-day-old baby off you, but nobody's actually briefed me or told me why I'm here. All I know is I've got orders to follow and I have to, see through on these orders. And we're going to take that baby out of your arms under any force to do so. And that even means that we have to assault the mother if need be in order to get that baby off. Now, that baby could be sitting on a mother's breast. That baby could be in a hospital. Okay, and I've got David here at the moment, and David probably won't mind me mentioning something in his case. So say you have a mother. Now, just to go back to birth, okay, so two people create a baby, a father and a mother. Those two people are responsible for that child. The father has stuck his penis into the mother, and therefore a child has been produced from his sperm and his egg. That child is created by the DNA of both of those parents. Both of those parents are responsible to provide for the baby, to give it love, warmth, nurture it, and to raise that child until eventually they are old enough to sustain themselves and thrive into the world that exists. It's our job as parents to do that. But there's many of us not getting the chance to do this. Why? Because of possible future emotional harm. Because somebody has a crystal ball out there and is running through a needle in a haystack to try to find people who are abusing children. Look, hats off to the services. I'm going to go on to another side of it, but hats off to genuine people who get through education and decide that they want to be a social worker or a police child protection officer. There's two very different services. Children's social services and child protection is two very different organisations. They are two very different, but the line is so blurred. And what is happening, I've got to take my coat off, guys. The reason I've got my coat on is because it's red and because I've got my red X off. And I wanted to, obviously, this is Forced Adoption Exposed, and we stand under a red banner. But I'm fucking roasting, excuse my French. So basically, I want to make sure that I get this video out and I get as enough stuff in here as possible, because I do know that I'm watched by media, press, MPs, journalists, reporters. We're watched by all forms of media.